right here. In the front row.
I will call the Tuesday, May 13th, Steele County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got a couple additions on the agenda here. We're gonna have 3A, the Master Service Agreement between Steele County and HMA regarding the creation of Steele County Human Services Department. And 3B will be the Statement of Work Agreement between Steele County and HMA regarding the creation of a new Steele County Human Services Department. What's up?
Mr. Chair, I would also like to pull out of the consent agenda number 13 to be moved to the general.
Okay.
So it's read publicly. It's the proclamation on our National Public Works Week.
Okay, 13, be the first under the general agenda there. Okay, who's,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the agenda with the changes, 3A and 3B and form number 13.
I'll second that.
motion's been made and seconded to approve agenda with the changes as mentioned. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. That will take us to 3A. The HMA Master Service Agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the master service agreement between Steele County and HMA regarding the creation of a new Steele County Human Services Department.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on it? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. That'll take us to 3B. Three B is recommendation for the commissioners to approve a work agreement between Steele County and HMA regarding the creation of the new Steele County Human Services Department.
Mr. Chair, I will move the approval of the Statement of Work Agreement between Steele County and HMA regarding the creation of a new Steele County Human Services Department.
I'll second
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the HMA statement for the work agreement between Steele County and HMA. Any further questions, comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. That will take us to our presentations. On number 4, UBS Financial Services presentations, starting on page number 5 of your packet.
I'm gonna give you the mouse to you here, and you just scroll down.
All right.
Jack Samuels.
Wonderful. Well, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. I was last here, about 2 years ago, I believe, if you guys recognize me at all. But we have been the safekeeper and custodian, as well as one of 4 brokers that supplies the county with their investment selections for the general fund investment portfolio. Just wanted to give a brief overview on the portfolio in general, and please stop me if you do have any questions that do come up. Here on this first page here, this is the executive summary of the portfolio that's going to show the current asset allocation, just in regards to cash to fixed income. So you'll see right now with the recent capital expenditures such as the CCA building, the sheriff's building, as well as the parking lots resurfacing. That cash balance has been drawing down a little bit here, so we're down to $863,000. I know that that Madison and Candy have been working diligently to manage those cash flows to ensure that we don't need to sell out of any of the current existing bonds early. Just because typically we have been a buy and hold portfolio for the county, so as stuff matures, hopefully that meets the cash flow requirements the county will need. If you look at the expected cash flow over here for the next 12 months, you'll see that taxable income for the, which ignore that it's taxable because obviously the county does not pay taxes, but that's just how the report shows it. We invest strictly in taxable securities because you get the benefit of a couple extra basis points in terms of your return by investing in taxable as opposed to tax-frees. And since you don't pay taxes, that's a good way to go. But you will see that the income for coupon cash flow for the next 12 months here is about 1.7 million. So that's just the interest that's going to be coming in over the next 12 months. Obviously, that's a factor of the recent change in interest rates over the last, probably since I was here last time was when they started to just jump up. But the county hadn't been able to really take advantage of investing in anything at that point back in 2023, since a good portion of the portfolio was still waiting to mature. So as that stuff has matured, we've been able to capture some higher paying securities and increase that interest income. And you will see as well, in addition to the interest income that will be coming in over the next 12 months, also about over 10 million in principal that will be maturing off the portfolio. Now, depending on any projects or any upcoming capital expenditure needs, a portion of that could be invested back into the portfolio, or if it's needed for cash, that's always an option too. But just wanted to point that out as well. That's basically the next 12 months of liquidity that you will be having here if nothing is done with the portfolio. Just want to take a look. I'll keep going here because this next page does include the credit quality of the bonds. But you will see up in the investment type allocation side of things, we have shifted from doing predominantly municipal bonds investing in because those have come out of favor in relation to the Treasury. The Treasury is always our baseline for what we're looking for fixed income securities because that is the safest and most liquid security. So anytime we're looking for a security outside of Treasuries, we're looking to get a spread above that. So with that, municipal bonds have fallen out of favor a little bit since 2023. Back when I was here in 23, that percentage of municipal bonds was about 57 to 60%, whereas now you'll see that's come down to 46%. So a little bit, in terms of your asset allocation, a little bit more distribution between all the applicable asset classes that we can use. You will see that we've started doing some assets in mortgage-backed securities. Those are backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, like U.S. agencies, the full faith and credit of Fannie and Freddie Mac, and then be able to get some nice favorable returns with those securities as well. Just wanted to point out the credit quality in the bottom left column. The biggest thing is that we're going to be looking at with the municipal bonds in the portfolio is obviously the credit quality of them, and you'll see that nothing has dropped below investment grade. Everything is still AAA or AA rated with the obviously certificates of deposits, and the agencies show as not rated, but those are backed by either FDIC or by the federal agencies themselves. So sitting nice in terms of the credit quality currently in the portfolio. Moving on is the bond maturity schedule. You will see that the county's been running at approximately about a 10-year ladder, but I do want to point out in the top left here, if you can see this, the average weighted maturity is about 3.47 years. So that's the average maturity in the portfolio. So even though, there are some securities out to 2033, 2032 and beyond, that the lion's share of the portfolio is maturing within this 5-year time frame, and that shakes out to an estimated average maturity of 3.47 years. Just wanted to show a comparison as opposed to when I was here last time with the change in interest rates and the county being able to gather some more interest and gain some more interest since then. So in this right-hand column, I'm not sure if everyone can see, but up in the top right, this right-hand column, this goes back to 4/25 of 23, which is the last time we made a presentation to the board. And you will see that the value in the portfolio has actually gone up by 2.637 million. That's a reflection of us being able to invest at peak rates. Now, granted, that's peak rates in terms of the last 5 years, so going back historically, not totally the peak if you go back 20 years. But since then, you'll see that despite the county drawing out $2.2 million in assets out of the portfolio for projects and such, that the change in value has still been able to go up $2.6 million. So that's what we're seeing is basically a recovery of some of those securities that were invested in during the pandemic, when rates had kind of bottomed out there for a significant portion of time. Now we're seeing those market values return back to normal levels as those securities mature out of the portfolio, and as we're able to invest in higher paying securities, higher interest paying securities that have gone up in value since we were at the peak of where rates were back in 2024. One last thing I want to point out here is the return of your portfolio since I was here last. You will see there's a couple benchmarks in here. Please ignore the S&P 500 benchmark, as the county is not authorized to invest in any sort of mutual funds or ETFs that would mirror the S&P. But you will see, if you compare it to the yield, I think the most representative benchmark would probably be the Bank of America Treasury 3 to 5 year benchmark. So that's basically a collection of treasuries that are ranging to get to a average weighted maturity of about 3 to 5 years, which is right where the county is sitting. And dating back to 23, that benchmark is sitting at about 3.33% return, while the county's at a 5.29. So to get some nice returns, not only in terms of the interest income, but also seeing some recovery in that market value, some significant recovery in that market value in the last 24 months as well. With that, I also wanted to point out the expected cash flows. This is just a deeper dive on that. Like I mentioned, so this will combine the interest payments as well as those maturities that are going to be coming in the next 12 months. So about $11.89 million estimated incoming funds that will be available. And granted, this can absolutely change if typically counties will be adding their portfolios around the tax settlement time here. So if the county does, bring some additional funds into the portfolio, we should hopefully see this number increase as well in terms of the expected interest for the next 12 months. One thing I also want to point out, like I mentioned it from the jump, is that we are the safekeepers and custodians of the money. However, we are not strictly the only broker on the account. So the way that we add competition to the account is the county is allowed to buy securities from anyone that they so choose. So currently, the county is purchasing from 3 different brokers in addition to us. So Multi-Bank Securities, Raymond James, and Northland Securities. So they aren't strictly looking at our bonds or our inventories each and every day. The county can really shop out to find what investments fit their portfolio best and hopefully pick the investments security that will offer the best return comparatively to all the other brokers. So that's just a little thing to hit on too in terms of the competition, the portfolio, that Candy and Madison are really farming this out to a number of different institutions to see what rates they can get for the county.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Any questions from the board?
So on the time-weighted rate of returns,
Yep.
talk to us about the fees.
So we do not charge any sort of custodian fees or anything like that, or any sort of fees on top of that. The fees that we make are just the same as all the other brokers, whereas when we sell you a security, the commission is typically baked into that security. So if we sell you a 3-year CD at a 4.5%, that 4.5% is what the county owns, so long as that bond is not callable and it comes to maturity. But the commission is baked into that, and that's very similar. I would go so far as to say that's exactly how the other brokers that are selling anything into the account make their commissions as well. But we do not charge any ancillary fees for keeping the assets at UBS. No sort of custody fees, ACH fees, wire fees, account fees, anything like that.
Any other questions from the board? If not, thank you for coming, Jack.
Thank you. See you guys, I'm sure somewhere down the line. I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll take us to number 5, A&R Educator Report. Ryan Norman.
Commissioners and staff, Mr. Dirks, Regional Director for the University of Minnesota Extension. So, last year, as part of our budgeting process, one of our goals after that was to increase communication with the board regarding the work of extension staff in the county. So we're doing that through two different ways. First of all, the County Extension Committee meets quarterly. After that meeting, the members of that committee kind of put together what are 3 things they would like for the board to know about. And then Commissioners Brady and Glenn are bringing those to the next board meeting after that as a verbal report to the rest of the board. And the second thing is that each of our program areas provide an annual update to the board. And so we're going to start off tonight with agricultural and natural resources with Ryan. Lori from Master Gardeners will be coming in a few weeks, and then 4-H will be in the fall. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
All right, hello everybody. Kind of a little bit of introduction there, kind of just kind of a note, just saying I've been in the role for just over a year now. So May 6th is when my official year-long term was. But so I'm kind of new to the role, but jumping right into it. You know, I kind of went through my whole training rigmarole and stuff with the university and all the stuff that I have to do there. The nice thing is I get to touch base with educators from around the state, kind of doing similar stuff that I do, so I can get some guidance and stuff and make sure I'm doing good things for the counties as well. And to kind of point out too, I do balance my time between Rice and Steele County, so I'm not just a Steele County extension educator. But it is ag and natural resources, so it's kind of a broad topic. I get all kinds of questions and phone calls from different people around the community here. So the big thing, just to kind of remind you, you know, Extension's goal is to just kind of take that university research and get it down to the public, get it down to the community, get it there so everybody, it's there and usable for if anybody has any questions or anything that they would like help with. That's kind of what Extension is here for, and I kind of just focus in on ag and natural resources. So, with that kind of being said, if you guys ever hear anything around the county, anybody's looking for different kind of programming or anything like that, we're welcome to hear it. We'd love to have more programs and stuff like that put on in the county. So jumping down here, just kind of some of the things I do for education and outreach. Radio slots, so Jerry Grosskreitz up at KDHL, he's really good with the ag side of the world, and he's a good partner to have, so we can jump on the radio anytime if we got programs that we want to promote or anything, any information we want to get out to the communities. He's really great to work with. I do have an e-newsletter that I also try and get out to anybody that wants to be on there. If anybody's interested in getting on there, we can always put you on there, and that kind of highlights some of the programming I'm doing around in the county. It also, I grab some stuff from the university as well, because there's things that happen either online or in neighboring counties that might be of interest of people of Steele County. And then newspaper articles, I write one every other week for local newspapers, so Steele County Times is definitely one of them. And then also special editions as well. So it's just kind of any kind of ag related topic. It's up to me what it is about. I get suggestions from different folks that like, hey, you know, maybe do an article about this, and I can definitely do that. But the nice thing about that form of outreach is I've been to different events and stuff around the counties, and I hear from a lot of people like, hey, I've read your article, or I have a question because I've read that article, you know, so it's a good way to get information out to the county as well. And then we do have a county Facebook page for ag extension, and you know, I try and post on there some, but it's definitely not my cup of tea, but it's just another way to get information out to folks if that's a way they get their information and to learn about events around the area. So then I kind of tailored this report mostly to Steele County, just because yes, I do work in both counties, but you know, we're here at Steele County tonight. I did have this highlight here of a farm transition workshop that did take place up in Rice County, but there were some Steele County residents that came up to that. So this would have been back in December of last year. We had 48 people registered, but if anybody happens to remember December 19th, we had a pretty crazy snowstorm blow through and only 28 people made it, but it was great. It was a lot of good conversation that had, you know, that's a big topic of transitioning the farm to the next generation. There's a lot of steps to go through from that, and we brought down one of our regional educators that's ag business management from the university, and they have a good program that they put on to get people thinking about the different steps that they need to take in a farm transition process. The next one there, private pesticide applicator training. So that's something that if you are applying restricted use chemicals on your farm, that is something you have to take every 3 years. And that's a service we provide. And so then those are the 3 cities that we put that program on in. And specifically the one in Owatonna, we chose to do that one as an evening meeting, so that way we could catch as many people as we can, you know. There's a lot of folks that are not farming full-time, and so an evening meeting was able to accommodate. And so, as you can see, the numbers in the parentheses there are just the numbers of people that showed up to those meetings. And then moving down into Farm Power Show. So you guys know that that's a big event here in town. It's been here for, I think, at least 18 years, something like that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So back to that private pesticide applicator training,
Yes.
who else does that? Because that seems like low numbers.
So, across the state this year, there was, I wanna say about 4,000 people that need to get recertified. Typically, they see about 1/3 doing it at in-person trainings like we put on. About 1/3 will do kind of the online version, and then another third can do what's a mail-in test. Is what that is. So, yeah, so we get a small chunk of the numbers, and you don't, it doesn't matter what county you live in, you can pick a date that works for you. So there's people that travel quite a ways to just pick a date that works for them. So it's not necessarily all Steele County residents that are coming to the Owatonna one, it's just depending on the date.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Farm and Power Show. So kind of part of my role when it comes to Farm and Power Show is we have a booth down there. So that is a good way for me to connect with community members as well. Get a chance for people to ask questions or anything like that. I'll talk about an event coming up here that I actually made contact with somebody about farm safety thing for youth, and so I'll touch base on that later, but that was a connection from the Farm and Power Show. So I'm usually down in the booth in the morning time, but then the afternoon, part of Extension's role is we put on afternoon programming upstairs during the Farm and Power Show, and so these are the 3 topics that I put together for this year. So cover crops, and that was just kind of a cover crops 101, get people interested in that. And so these were actually all really well attended events. The organic row crops, that event has been happening in Steele County for at least 20 years. They decided to try and do it at Farm and Power Show this year to just maybe try and pull in some more interested folks into that. And then beef quality assurance, that is a voluntary program for livestock producers to take, but you do get a benefit from that. You take that every 3 years, and it's just proper handling of livestock is what that kind of centers around. And then this is a list of just kind of some of the ones, again, in Steele County that I've done over the past year, kind of some of the highlights of some things that I've done. Plant science kickoff, so that is a 4-H program, but, you know, actually the master gardener, coordinator, myself, and then the 2 4-H educators all work together on this, as well as the soil and water district folks. And it's a great event to get youth kind of introduced to different things around plant science. The idea is they kind of plant some plants, or they learn about something, and then hopefully they can bring that project to the fair, but they don't necessarily have to. But it's just another way to engage with the community and learn about plants. And then Steele County Fair, present the Farm Family of the Year Award during the fair, and then also assist the 4-H educators too, wherever I can, if they need help with anything. You know, 4-H is not my realm, but I'm definitely there to help wherever I can, because, you know, we're a team there. So, and then, yeah, I'm not gonna talk about all of these, but there are 2 events, September 14th and February 8th. There is a local pollinator group here in town that likes to do, have meetings at the local public library here in Owatonna, and I've been there twice now to do presentations on different topics for them that they've asked me to come out and do. So that's another thing that I can do as an educator in my role, is to come out and talk about certain topics that somebody's interested in. we had a soil health workshop. I didn't put it on, but I attended, and that was really well attended in Owatonna. There was 120 people registered for that one. It was a little cold that day, so we didn't quite get that many people to show up, but it's another good thing to talk about soil health, you know, and good things to do. And then, kind of here on this last page, technical assistance calls. So like I said, started in May of last year, so I only got 66 calls last year in the 7 months I was in the role. And I'm already at 31 on here, and I actually looked this morning, I'm already at 35, so we're definitely gonna, those numbers are gonna keep going up. So that's somebody walking into the office, that's people emailing me, that's people catching me on the phone, and it's, those are kind of the gamut of questions that I get. You know, it can be, you know, from gardening and tree stuff to crop rent prices and all kinds of stuff in between. So it's kind of a big gamut, and you know, I might not know all the answers to it, but that's the nice thing about my role is I have connections to people up at the university, and we can find answers for people that, if they're looking for something. And then, last thing here, kind of, I touched on it a little bit, so one of the Owatonna police officers stopped by the booth there at Farm and Power Show and said, hey, you know, they do this farm safety, or they do this safety camp with, 4th graders, and they were looking for somebody to fill the ag role of that. And so they put me in touch with whoever's in charge of that, and so in June, we're gonna have a little program, and we're gonna put a little ag twist to it on my section of the talk, so that's kind of one of the big things that's coming up in Steele County, I guess. So, with that,
Sounds like you've been busy.
I try to.
What would be the best way to get a hold of you then if somebody's got a question?
You know, email or phone number is fine, so you can call the Steele County office, extension office directly. I also have a cell phone as well, so, you know, 507-330-0447 is a good way to get a hold of
And
me.
I know you have a little office over here, but you probably have one in Rice County too.
Yes, yep, we're on the fairgrounds up in Rice County, so,
Okay.
yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so I can tell you guys made a concerted effort to, more contact in the community. I'm seeing emails and letters in the newspaper, so good job, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the newspaper articles are interesting.
Good, glad to hear it.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, see you in a few weeks.
Yep. Thank you, Lisa.
Yep, good night.
Okay, that will take us to public comment. Those wishing to speak must state their name and address for the record. After they are acknowledged by the board chair, each person will be limited to 2 minutes to make his or her remarks. Speakers will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. The board may not take action on an item presented during public comment period unless the item is already on the agenda for action. When appropriate, the board may refer inquiries and items brought up during the public comment period to the county administrator for follow-up. So is that?
Colin Whalen, 2435 Briarwood Place Northeast. Good evening, Commissioners. Regarding your agenda item number 27, approve amendment with WSB for preliminary engineering services for East Side Corridor. With the county engineer announcing his resignation, why would the county be looking to vote on giving him increased authority and spending power in his final days of employment? Most employers limit resigning employees' access and decision-making in their final days, if remaining days are even allowed. In my experience, I've seen knowledge transfer take place, but the actions you're looking at with this item are highly irregular for a departing employee. Why is money being asked for to pay for design work moving forward with WSB before public review of the environmental assessment worksheet and public comments on EAW are addressed? Spending an additional $209,000 on roundabout and design work, WSB is absolutely putting the cart before the horse. And I just want to mention that the $209,000 is about a 50% increase from the original estimate on that item that you're going to be looking at. Please look at this through the lens of a taxpayer to understand how shaky this appears as it relates to transparency, oversight, and accountability. This process is already several years in. I'm talking about the East Side Corridor. So why the sudden urgency to push sign-offs and make project decisions out of order? This is the time to pause and reevaluate. Let a new county engineer come in and look at all options. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Sherry Whalen, 2435 Briarwood Place Northeast. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So at a recent meeting, you asked why additional time was required for the East Side corridor planning. The response was complexity, resource turnover, studies, and other reasons. But complexity does not need to be confusing. As with any multi-million-dollar project, when significant requirements, cost, or timelines change, it is necessary to reevaluate options and solutions. For example, with more recent studies and paid engagements, have you considered option 3B? Has it been presented to you or the public? What is the high-level comparison of option 3 with its required studies, roundabouts, resident safeguards, and mitigations compared to option 3B or 4? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions, or tens of millions of taxpayer dollar difference? How is resident safety being addressed with each option? With Paul leaving, we need a fresh perspective to present a full picture. As a community of stakeholders and decision makers, we welcome the opportunity to partner with you in laying out the most current information, allowing you to make more fully informed decisions. These decisions will have long-term impact on our community, so we seek to respectfully collaborate to pursue the most fiscally responsible, ethical solution to serve the community and steward our money. If you are not confident in answers to any of the questions posed, then it is premature to commit any further time or money to this effort until you are confident. We look forward to working together with you as you are driven to deliver quality services in a respectful and fiscally responsible way. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Sennett, 2519 Stony Creek Drive. I'm here this evening to ask you to reconsider allowing a county engineer who's already announced his resignation to continue signing off on critical elements of long-term infrastructure projects on his way out the door. Most employers, when handed resignation, as Colin said, walk the employee to the door, or at the very least, do not hand them more authority and a hurried stack of critical infrastructure projects for last-minute decisions and signatures that will have a lasting impact long after he's gone. Yet that's what's happening here tonight, or at least proposed on the agenda, at the expense of your constituents, residents, and taxpayers. He is being given unfettered power to make high-impact decisions on his way out the door that taxpayers and future staff will live with long after he's gone, with no accountability, and that's unacceptable. We ask for a pause on any project sign-offs or decisions until a new county engineer is in place. Let them bring fresh eyes and ownership to these projects. And there's more. Millions in federal aid were recently redirected away from the East Side Corridor project, replaced with local taxpayer funds, and all without a vote. Meanwhile, we're discussing design options like roundabouts before the necessary reports and studies have even come back. That's putting the cart well before the horse. Why are we funneling so much money to WSB, the engineering firm on this project? The amount of money going out the door to that firm continues to balloon and deserves much needed attention. And finally, Alternative 3B, that Sherry mentioned, for the East Side Corridor remains a viable, cost-effective solution for the East Side Corridor project. It's safer, less disruptive, and just 600 feet away from the original route, which was drafted long before the neighborhoods that are there now, which are actually built right on the right-of-way. 3B provides adequate space for safety and noise mitigations, yet it was quietly removed from documentation by the engineer. That alone warrants a pause and reevaluation. Let's do this right, no rush, no regrets. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ginny Rittman. I'm the Executive Director for Workforce Development, Inc. We're a nonprofit organization that provides employment and training services for our 10-county area in southeast Minnesota. A few weeks ago, I sent you a letter outlining...
Mr. Chair, we need an address.
Oh, yep, I apologize. Work or home?
Any address
Okay, 1850 Austin Road is our office here in Owatonna. I apologize. All right, a few weeks ago, okay,
Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
a few weeks ago, I sent a letter outlining our organization's willingness and ability to deliver employment and training services through your MPIP program. We believe that a renewed partnership with WDI and Steele County would be beneficial, especially considering the potential dissolution of Steele County services through Mid Prairie. WDI has been a trusted provider of employment training services for over 40 years, including 31 years delivering services through MFIB and previously Stride. While we have not directly provided these services in Steele County for the past decade or so, we have consistently supported all of the other counties in our region. One of the key factors in our success is our ability to braid multiple funding streams, allowing us to provide comprehensive and individualized support. Our efforts are guided by the Workforce Development Board of Southeast Minnesota, which is private business led, and our Joint Powers Board of Southeast Minnesota. Currently, many MFIB and DWP participants in Steele County are referred to WDI already for career guidance and enrollment in our extensive programs at no cost to Steele County. Moving the MFIB DWP contracts to WDI would streamline services, creating a more efficient and welcoming one-stop experience for those seeking employment support. WDI is already serving 417 Steele County residents through our existing programs. On average, WDI served counties see MFIB exits to employment at nearly twice the state average. We believe this partnership will greatly enhance service efficiency and effectiveness in Steele County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Melissa Zimmerman, 2525 Stony Creek Drive. There are 6 engineering projects on tonight's agenda, totaling about $1.3 million. Number 22, a Festal Farms land deal, no cost. 23, the Havana project. Just last month, you were discussing pushing this project to 2027. Now you're approving $500,000 for a final design. Where are the environmental reports? This makes no sense. Number 24, a speed study. We just changed Bixby's speed limit. How did we do that without a study? Now you're asking for another study? Why? What's the cost? 25 and 26, the 18th Street roundabout. A month ago, the engineer said we were back at square one with the railroad. Now we're signing 113 pages of contracts. The design doesn't meet the railroad's 200-foot requirement at only 150 feet. The liability concerns tied to the east side corridor traffic and roundabout proximity. The feds had a program to absorb the liability, but per public data, the county hadn't enrolled in that program. Are we accepting full liability? That's a massive risk. Another $600,000. 26. 27. WSB wants more money. Another $209,000 for design work. Right-of-way mapping, roundabout design, noise studies again, soil boring 15 miles away from where the road crosses the creek. Even a federal CADX report, but you dropped federal funding. Why do we need a federal report if there's no federal funding? And more designs. WSB's specialty is roundabouts, so naturally there are 4 of them. To justify that, they have changed traffic counts, which means noise studies again. How many times do we pay for them to change the data to meet their wants? Are we designing a project before it clears environmental, why are we designing a project before it clears environmental reviews? We have a long way to go before we get to the point of design. This is planning the finish line before we started the race. This will cost us more than $209,000. 28, a resurfacing project for about another $600,000. Altogether, you're handing your soon-to-be former engineer nearly $1.3 million in contracts. I don't care who's leaving or how good of a job they did. When someone's on their way out, you don't hand them the checkbook. Hit pause, table these items. Let the new engineer take a fresh look. A couple of months won't make a huge difference, but rushing this could make a huge impact. Thank you.
There you go. Any other public comment?
Scott Sorensen, 4616 Southeast 18th Street. I'm here in support of asking that all of the projects that our current county engineer is working on, that they be put on hold and put under review by the next engineer that will be taking that place. And I'm here primarily interested in the Havana project. I was here last month. Since then, we've put the 4-way stops up. That has been working great. Now, if we're talking about a $5.5 million project that maybe could be reviewed again and solved with maybe $100,000 of signage, I think that's worth delaying and having the new engineer review. That's it.
Okay. You're next.
Artist Woods, 2475 Fox Hollow Lane. I just want to share the concern of handing the ability for someone, an engineer that's outgoing, to sign off on spending money. It's just not in the business world something that happens. In fact, in business, a lot of people that turn their time in are out the door and not, so they can't access or screw anything up. And that's not what I'm saying our engineer would do. I just think it would be better to put a pause on it until there's a new engineer.
Deb Schrader, 518 East Main Street. I'm here supporting the Havana project, the most dangerous intersection in Steele County. 15 crashes over 3 intersections over 10 years. 9 crashes on 180 and 43, 4 crashes on 171 and 43, 2 crashes on 43 and 18th Street. Of these 15 crashes over the 10 years, 4 had minor injuries, 4 possible injuries, and 7 property damage. The detailed data shows 8 of 10 years have 0 or 1 accident per year for all 3 intersections. I can't go through all the detail, but let's just average the crash data. 15 crashes over 10 years is 1.5 crash per year. 1.5 crash per year over 3 intersections is a half a crash per year. You're getting ready to approve final design costing millions of dollars and taking farmland to improve 3 intersections that have an average of 1.5 intersections per year. Havana has a low crash rate. This is not our most dangerous intersection in Steele County. I have another dangerous intersection that I think would top it. There's one intersection that went through improvements, and from July 2020 to February 2021, there were 13 accidents. One intersection, 8 months, 13 accidents. That's something I would rather see being worked on than Havana, which has such low crash rate.
Lily Bear, 210 North Grove. I just want to say I've visited my grandma's house many times as I've grown up, and it's fun to see the community grow together. And I feel like having the highway built there will kind of ruin it, because I always used to trick or treat there, and seeing how many people would come, I feel like the highway will make it really busy and make it almost impossible for anyone to want to trick or treat there, and for the community to kind of just start growing apart and not like really talking to each other anymore, because it's so dangerous to walk across the road, because having a highway will have more cars go up and down their road and make it harder for everyone to communicate. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment? Going twice? 3 times? Public comment over. Thank you. That will take us to correspondence. We have page 19, a letter from Southern Minnesota Tourist Association. And after that, that'll take us to the consent agenda, with number 13 being previously pulled down to the general agenda. Board's wishes on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented with number 13 being moved to the general.
Motion's been made, seconded by Commissioner Prokopek, to approve the consent agenda as printed, minus number 13 that has pulled. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That'll take us down to general and number 13, which is the adopt a proclamation of the National Public Works Week, on page 66 of your.
Mr. Chair, the reason I wanted this pulled is I think it's important enough to bring forward for the general public to hear about this proclamation.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, especially thank you, Commissioner Krieger, for pulling this, and yes, I do want to recognize all the incredible work that our highway crews do, our landfill teams, our parks department, all the public works staff, not only in the Steele County, but all our communities, the 4 cities, and all their public works crews, the 13 townships, and all the work they do on their systems. We have a significant amount of work that we provide for the community, everything from transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste, all our buildings and structures and facilities to give them a decent way of life. So thank you for recognizing that.
With that, I will move the adoption of the proclamation of National Public Works Week in Steele County.
I'll second.
Got a motion made and seconded for the proclamation of National Public Works Week. Any further discussion?
I would just like to plead with the public that when you see the crews out there working on the roads, that you please follow the signs and the flagmen and all that sort of stuff, so not only you, but all of our workers make it home safe every night, so.
Anything else? With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
May anniversary report.
Good evening, here to present the May anniversary report. We'll start with Caddy Hernandez San Martin, a paralegal, 3 years of experience. Caleb Buck, deputy sheriff, 9 years of experience. Bill Youngquist, sergeant with the sheriff's office, 28 years of experience. Rose Root, accounting technician, 11 years of experience. Janet Corgi, who retired once and came back and is 7 years on her second tour. Lisa Wapo, supervisor in public health, 25 years. Kevin Kozel, correctional sergeant, 13 years. Michelle McMurphy, RN, 6 years. Mike Smith, sheriff, or sergeant with the sheriff's office, 11 years. Anthony Solsa, correctional officer, 2 years. Steve Schultz, correctional officer, 11 years. Mary Jo Bergquist, administrative support and veteran services, 6 years. And Christina Wassel, network support, 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, and thank you for all those employees celebrating their anniversary. Case 21, approve the sale of the community corrections furniture to Choice Technical Academy. Tim?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As the request states, we've been working on the facilitation of the furniture from our previous work site at 631 North Cedar. Choice Technical Academy is currently looking to be the next tenant and has been working with the landlord to get the certificate of occupancy. I understand they're very, very close to getting that document. And working with Choice Technical Academy reps to figure out what kind of furniture from the site that they want. Most of the furniture is custom fit to the building, it's still staged at the building. Been in communication with Jake Rushabi about the furniture. He also thinks it's a good idea if we sell the furniture, not remove the furniture, because otherwise it'd be damaged and the value would be lost. So I'm requesting for a total amount of $6,000 mentioned, itemized in the MOU, and authorizing me to sign the attached MOU once Choice Technical Academy signs off on the sale.
Board's wishes?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the terms of the sale of the furniture to Choice Technical Academy in the amount of $6,000, authorize Tim Shamel, Steele County Community Corrections Director, to sign the attached MOU.
I'll second that.
Motion's being made and seconded to approve the sale of the furniture, authorizing Tim Shamel to sign it for the Steele County Community Corrections. Any further discussion? Yes.
Surprised at how quickly that depreciates or loses its value. I understand because it's custom to the space that we're kind of, we don't have a lot of options, and I would hope that it would be worth more than that. It's taxpayer money. Kind of, we don't have any options right now, especially knowing what we paid upstairs for new furniture, so.
Any comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Adopt resolution, amending CUP number 302, Minnesota Paving and Materials. and Festival Farms, moving 3 parcels.
So Minnesota Paving and Materials has requested to remove 3 parcels owned by Festival Farms from CUP 302. Festival Farms will be transferring ownership to the city of Owatonna, and the city of Owatonna intends to try to jump on the park.
Any questions from the board on this matter? They all understand what's going on there? Okay, board's wishes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to remove the 3 parcels from CUP 302.
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt a resolution to amend CUPS 302, Minnesota Paving and Materials, and Festival Farms removing the 3 parcels. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Oil on this chart. 23, approve amendment agreement with WHKS and Company to complete final design of the County State Aid 2, County Road 180, County State Aid Highway 43, and County Road 171 intersection improvements. Authorize county engineer to sign. Paul.
Good evening again, commissioners. This is the Havana project on the intersections of 2 and 43. Last board meeting, we had the board approve WHKS's study and then recommendations to for the improvements of the intersection, some realignments of County Road 180 there in particular. So we did have a plan for this year to go into final design with the approval. So WHKS has provided a proposal here to go into final design, prepare all the environmental documents and so forth required to get this project out to a contractor to bid and move forward on this project. So we have an estimate of $495,000 for them to do the work. We did budgeted $150 in funding for this year. It is over what we had estimated for that budget, but we do have additional funds in our sales tax balance that we can use.
Why is there such a big difference there, from your budgeted number?
I think when we originally estimated the project was going to be considerably less than what we came at. I think the original project was estimated about $2 million, and unfortunately it came back at about $5 million. So it was very high level estimates that we were putting together when we first put the project into the paper here. And with the feasibility study, we got a lot into more details and learned a lot more about what was required for the project. So it requires a lot more effort than we had anticipated. So.
Any questions from the board?
Just a comment.
Comment?
I would agree. I think we've heard tonight that we're paying that consult WHKS a lot of money and a lot of projects all the time. I know you guys have discussed this in committee. The rest of us haven't had the opportunity in committee to really delve into it. What is the, I'm not saying we want to put it on hold, but what is the downside if we did agree to put it on hold some of these projects? We're not going to deliver on time. Obviously, there's
construction inflation, 10-15% a year. So every year delayed is another 10-15% of the construction project. We're not using the monies that we've been allotted. Keeping the program going and keeping consistent program going and utilizing our staff in an effective way. Those are the delays, the concerns that we would have.
So the monies that we were allotted, we forfeit those dollars?
No, they pile up, but the state holds them. We don't hold that until we complete the project.
So we're talking about the turnback money, correct?
Turnback money.
So the state's holding it,
monies.
we don't have it, so we're not collecting interest on it or not.
Sales tax money we do keep, and we do collect interest on that. But
The 2 million, we are not earning a penny.
Right, that's
And the longer we wait, the more they.
That's what I'm saying, we're not getting we got the 2 million sitting in our bank.
Well, this is good discussion, obviously, we haven't had it, because three of us haven't been in the committee, so that's why we're talking about it here tonight, so. We've heard the public, and, do we wanna put it on hold till we get a new engineer? How would that change things if we get a different engineer, other than a different set of eyes? I mean, the studies have been completed, right, on this specific project?
This specific project, we've had an engineer that's gone through, we evaluated all alternatives, presented you the options, and then the board has decided on an option, and now we have the ability to move forward with the project. Unless we're gonna go back and start that whole study over again and review those options again at another, it's all the cost of the analysis, of the repeat of analysis. I don't think the results are gonna change much.
So we start the study over, or start from scratch?
If that's what you're discussing here, I think, because you've already made a decision to move forward with this option, and the next step then is to go into design. So the county board's made a decision here, so unless you want to go back and review that decision.
I don't think we're going back, Paul. I think the question would be is, when do we wanna move forward? Now, or we wanna wait a little bit? I mean, we wanna wait, but we can go back and start the process over, because we come up with the same answer.
So whether it's me or another engineer, we are at this point that we have decided already on option 4 here. And now it's just a matter of, do we decide to move forward and design this and get this in construction as soon as we can get it in construction, save a life at this intersection.
I mean, we say that on every intersection, right? I understand that, and I'm not trying to be difficult, I just wanna be able to process what we're doing.
I think the one thing that's important for the board to know is this is not engineering work that we can do in-house or that we would do in-house. And all of the projects that you're gonna be seeing before you this evening is work that we need to use outside consultants to do. These are consultants that are very highly regarded by Fausto, who is our regional state aid person. We had a lengthy conversation this morning about the good choices Steele County has made in selecting the consultants that we work with, because we know the work to be quality, we know that this is an organization that will stand behind it. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And delay really means more cost, because we know that the cost of engineering is gonna continue to go up, as are the cost of materials. So it really does come down to, if we solidify this design work today, we know that there's bits and pieces along County 43 that might actually be included in your 2026 construction plan, which could include the resurfacing and the bridge work in anticipation of eventually then upgrading that intersection. So I don't know at this point that you're going to get a better deal from a different consulting engineering firm, particularly one that wasn't part of the original design. So I know that that's frustrating. You've heard the dollar amounts that are being quoted. I'm gonna tell you, any other engineering firm would charge this or more. So unfortunately, that's the cost of doing this kind of work, because this is not engineering work that's done in-house. It is work that is done using consultants, because ultimately we're relying on their subject matter expertise, a much deeper bench, because they have a staff of engineers that work on these projects, and we have their professional liability on the line if there's anything that goes wrong.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's what I was trying to get to. Without making it personal, we don't want to do that, Paul. It doesn't matter what engineer's sitting in his seat. Obviously, it's the engineer's responsibility to move the projects forward that we so desire. Pushing it out, it doesn't make sense to me. We've made the determination that we're gonna move forward on it, so to move this piece of it out, it's only gonna cost the taxpayer. Is that what I mean? Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Engineering's expensive. For just the final design is typically 7 to 10% of a construction cost. So this is well within that estimate here. We have a $5 million project, and it's $500,000, just under $500,000 in engineering. That's in the ballpark of what we expect for engineering services for final design.
Yeah, it just, I mean, it feels like every time we turn around, we're asked to approve another $500,000, and it's difficult. That's taxpayer dollars, but we also have a responsibility, right?
We have a construction program of $10 to $15 million every year, and that's $10 to $15 million of construction activity, so it takes a significant amount of engineering resources to put all that together, so. For every million that we're spending out on the road, we gotta spend probably $100,000 on just the final design. That doesn't count the engineering studies or anything, so, it's an expensive business we're in.
Okay. Board's wishes on the matter. Board's wishes?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the approval of the amendment to agreement with WHKS and Company to final design for the CASA 2, CR 180, CASA 43, and CR 171 intersection improvement, and authorize county engineer to sign the amendment.
Got a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on it?
I would just like to add that, Paul went to bat to get that four-way stop out there. And we all knew it was only a temporary solution because MnDOT was not gonna allow that to stay because of the railroad tracks, especially being where they're at. So I think we bought some time, for that project to, have that four-way stop there, but we knew all along that MnDOT had told us that that was just a temporary situation, so that we had to do something there to change that intersection. So.
And it sets us up for the future.
Correct.
So we're saving money by doing it now instead of 10 years from now.
So I want to call the question on number 23. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think it's 24. Adopt resolution requesting MnDOT perform a speed study, County State Aid 46, County State Aid 15 to Minnesota Highway 30.
This again, South 46 on down Blooming Prairie. You remember last week we authorized no parking zones along that highway. We've gotten a lot of feedback, including from the school district, to request a reduction in the speed. So MnDOT is the only authority to set speed limits on our highways. So this is our opportunity to, if you approve MnDOT to take a look at this by the resolution, then they can take a look at it. Now, they don't necessarily look at just lowering it, they will also look and see if what the speed limit should be, and it could potentially be raised. So they will evaluate all the different situations out there, everything from traffic counts to the traffic volumes, the road use, the land use around it, and so forth. So we have had a few changes out there since the last time they were out there in 1992, where they authorized 45 miles an hour. We've had some additional school parking, athletic fields added. We have added a marked pedestrian crossing. So I don't know if that's enough to get them to lower it, but in some of these studies, they've actually raised them. So compared that, that's what they decide on this.
So the school board is requesting this?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Question?
No, I just caught.
Can I ask a question, or you want to?
Yeah, no.
Is there a cost?
Not to us, it's MnDOT staff time.
Can they, we were talking about it earlier, is there a possibility of doing some sort of permit for events? For the school, the 4th of July parade, to close the road?
They can certainly, we do authorize permits to close roads for parades and so forth. I think we did talk to the school district about closing the road for events, but because that's almost, I don't know how often they're going, it's several times a week. Trying to have the staff to set up the proper road closures there's all the advanced warnings, the barricades.
So there's nothing the
just
school
this-
can do and stuff.
And a lot of those events are not school sponsored, they're like clubs or other things that come in, other people that are coming there, so the logistics of doing a road closure for every time they have events out there, school wanted to not do anything with that.
Okay. Board's wishes?
Mr. Chair, I'll offer the resolution requesting MnDOT to perform a speed study at South 46.
Your second.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded, to adopt resolution requesting MnDOT perform a speed study on County State Aid Highway 46, County State Highway 15 to Minnesota 30. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 25, approve amendment WSP for engineering services for County State Aid 48 18th Street Southeast Roundabout, and authorize the county engineer to sign.
Alright, this is the roundabout project, we, near the new high school here on South 48, Dixie Road, that 18th Street intersection. As you know, we started construction on this, was it back in 2023, 2 years ago. We've had a significant delay after delay from the railroad. The next agenda item here is the railroad agreement. We finally, after 5 years of negotiations with the railroad, we finally got some agreement here. So pending your input on that. Next thing here, if we get approvals on those agreements here, then we can then move into final construction on that east leg that's going across the railroad crossing, and move that crossing and build it to the plans that the railroad at one point had agreed to, and the MnDOT Transportation Commissioner as well. So when we built the roundabout, we kind of proceeded without the rail's authority because we knew it was a major intersection with significant increases in traffic. It was going to become a significant safety issue for us with all the new high school traffic. So despite not having the full agreements yet, we were anticipating getting them within weeks, months when we started construction, but the railroad just stalled us every step we took. But we decided to keep moving forward with the project to get the safety that was necessary to get that, to handle all the new traffic in that school, make sure the students that go to that could get their home safe every day. With that, we've had some significant change orders and things that we've had to deal with. WSB did the construction inspection for us out there, so there's a lot of additional construction inspection that they'll have to do once we get back into the program here, hopefully this summer here. There's a lot of additional design work. We had to do some temporary connections to the existing roadway. Now we have to figure out to remove all that now, so additional design engineer work with that. And then working with the consultant to renegotiate, work with the contractor, our contractor is Hazleton Construction. Hazleton is just an amazing contractor, and super flexible. If we had any other contractor, we could have been just fighting major damages and so forth, and Hazleton's gone above and beyond what we would expect from the contractor, and so, but we do have, we'll probably have to renegotiate some of those unit prices that he bid on originally 2 years ago. Prices have changed significantly over the years, so WSB will help us in that process and get that done here, so the proposals.
Would construction be finished this year yet, do you think?
I do hope so. If we get the agreement finalized with the railroad, Hazleton's ready to go. He's got capacity to do it. So I think if everything goes well, we can get it going here the next couple of weeks. But I'm not gonna hold my breath yet. So it's been a process.
You've been holding it a long time.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the original contract with WSB did not include the fourth leg?
It did, but we had to make some temporary adjustments and changes to connect that fourth leg to the existing roadway, instead of moving north. That was the original plan, so a lot of extra design work for that, and then we'll have to figure out all the removal costs, remove all that, extra work that we had done last year, so. And then also, as we, look into the east side corridor, this will be eventually the south, connection of the east side corridor. There's some things that we can do with this to better prepare us as we, discover things, so that we don't have to, reconstruct, a couple hundred feet of approaches to this roundabout, so, we're getting that worked into this, there's a final, some adjustments to the design here. So additional services, another $83,000 in construction and design, efforts, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the memo of WSB for engineering. CASA 48 and 18th Street roundabout, and authorize county engineer to sign the amendment.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the amendment to WSB for engineering services on County State Highway 48 and 18th Street, southeast roundabout. Authorize the county engineer to sign. Any further comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That'll take us to 26, which is a group of different agreements here. A, approve the negotiated settlement for $26,000 for the acquisition of an easement over, under, across, and through parcel of land owned by CPKC Railroad and Southeast 18.
Before we get into each individual one here, it's kind of a overall view. This is kind of a package deal here. Yes, over 5 years of my discussions with the railroad, we started discussing this project 5 years ago with them. And now we got over 100 pages of what I call legalese here. It's quite rough. But significant effort involving even the Transportation Commissioner, the Minnesota Transportation Commissioner, Nancy Doldenbauer, really key into getting the rail office of MnDOT and the railroad, and figuring out the best way to lay out this roundabout without, some of the initial desires of the MnDOT rail office would have required us to pretty much acquire a $2 million parcel, but we were able to work things with the design efforts. We finally had gotten that figured out, but then we ran into a lot of significant just the legalese, the liability issues, and so forth. So now we've gone through 3 different county attorneys here. We eventually brought in Greta Bjorkness out of Lavender, Gillen, and Miller. And she's been instrumental in working with the railroad attorneys and presenting our side of the things and getting things worked out. So thank you for Rob and all of her efforts to get this thing finally something that both parties can agree to here. So there's 3 parts of it. The first one here is the easement to move the road roughly 100 feet to the north to better align the road and so forth, make it safer for the crossing, make it safer for the roundabout. We do have to acquire an easement across the railroad property. Initially, we had done an evaluation and determined that the purchase was about $10,000 in value. The railroad came back at a $60,000 counter offer. Working with our county assessor Brian here, and evaluating their valuations and so forth, we finally got them to agree to $26,000. So staff is recommending this as a negotiated settlement to go with the $26,000 to purchase this easement across the railroad right away.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Mr. County Attorney?
Yeah.
I looked at this and I kept looking and I thought, that's why we got you here. You looked through it all?
Yeah, so I've gone through this contract several times. I defaulted to Lavender, Gillen, and Miller. First you're I'm not a railroad attorney. It's a very specialized area of law, and but they are, and work out some of those very specific issues. The biggest issue for the county, which has been raised since day one, is the liability that we're taking on, which is different than routine, I would say, routine intersections, where the federal government takes on some responsibility, we're taking on some responsibility. But per the attorney that we hired for this, both agree that this is the best it's gonna be. With the railroad, kind of note, we are a county government, so we do have liability limits just inherently in the statute. So even though it may appear that we have significant liability, statutorily, state government has limited our liability. And so I have no real concern with this contract as it's written, even though it does have some liability put on the county more than usual. So I would recommend signing this contract, as does Lavender, Gill, and Miller.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I'd agree, I looked through it as well, and I can't really decipher the liability piece. Where would I go find that?
It's spread throughout, but the main.
Main piece is in the second part here, the maintenance and the construction agreement for your office. Let's see.
Because that, you're correct, that's been the sticking point from, really from day one, is who's gonna assume the liability at that crossing, it was always.
Is that the norm for railroad
It is
forward?
Moving forward, yes. For county, my understanding, for county, not, or for non-basic county roads.
Any questions for Paul?
So that was in which piece, the second one?
It's under the maintenance agreement, if you look under, paragraph 8 liability, it talks about who's responsible for damage, who's responsible for anything that might occur once it's constructed, and then there's a general indemnification clause. So the county does have comprehensive liability insurance, but we also have for limit caps. So ultimately, our risk is probably no different than any other intersection when you think about it because of those cap limits. And if there really was an incident at a crossing, everybody's gonna be suing everybody because it's either a lighting problem, or it's a rail problem, or it's a driver problem. So it wouldn't be just the county on the line.
From what I understand, the signing any other type of an agreement.
Correct.
Because you even tried to work some federal thing out, and that didn't.
We did, for this project, we were able to, get the federal, program to, we're already on the hook to install, rail crossing signals and gates, but we were able to, convince MnDOT to, get us into a federal program to, participate in the construction of those signals and gates. Just to get us in the program, they gave us a token, $5,000 just to be in the program. We're still on the hook for the other, I don't know, was it $500,000 total, I think it was, to pay for the signals and gates, but that $5,000 was a token investment from the feds to get in the program, and then they can assume some of those liabilities, so.
That tracks is used like once a year, isn't it, or?
I've been, the railroad says that they have, at least, on average, what was it, 2 trains a day on it, but it varies, I think, throughout the year, but, depending on the harvest and so forth, but, railroad has also explained to me that, since, the Canadian Pacific acquired the Kansas City, railroad, now the only railroad in the continent that connects Canada to Mexico. The railroad is insisting any north-south route is very valuable to them, and if that means more trains on this at some point, I don't know, but they seem to think it's a highly valuable segment of their system that's providing north-south connectivity between the 3 nations here, so.
Mr. Chair, so, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
was a cost share in that roundabout. Is this our complete share of the cost, or is there gonna be some participation from?
We do have a three-party agreement with with ourselves, the city, and the school district. So, the rail crossing itself, we just decided not to, since it's more of a, improvement that's gonna be for the east side corridor. These improvements aren't necessarily needed for as a township road, but when it becomes the east side corridor, those are improvements. So we had decided, as staff, is not to include that as, for the school district. So it'll be, split then between the city and the county.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Abbey's question, it's contained on page 171 of the board packet. 8.3 talks about liability and indemnification. That's essentially we're agreeing in 8.3 to indemnify the railroad company to maximum extent permitted by law. And so maximum extent permitted by law is contained in chapter 466 of statutes. And to go further to that, it depends on the type and types of claims.
Thank you.
So I know we've jumped around a little bit, but we lumped these together because it literally is an all or nothing. However, there are three discrete action items that we would ask the board to take up individually for voting purposes. But if the board is not inclined to approve any one, then none of the three can be approved.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the negotiated settlement for $26,000 for the acquisition of an easement over, across, and through the parcel of land owned by CPKC Railroad for Southeast 18th Street.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Will take us to B, maintenance agreement with CPKC Railroad for the work necessary to relocate and improve the Southeast 18th Street rail crossing. Page 144.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the approval of the maintenance agreement with CPKC Railroad for the work necessary to relocate and improve the Southeast 18th Street rail crossing.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. That'll take us to C. Adopt the resolution 2025-027 to approve agreement with CPKC Railroad in the state of Minnesota for the installation of crossing signals and gates at the Southeast 18th Street rail crossing.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer the resolution.
Motion to offer the resolution.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Abbey. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Resolution passes.
I just want to add, I want to thank Paul for his persistence on following this project through. It's been a challenge.
That'll take us to 27. Approve, on page 239, approve amendment with WSP for preliminary engineering services on East Side Corridor project and authorize the county engineer to sign the amendments.
Commissioners, we continue our work in the East Side Corridor project. Another very challenging project as we keep going, and things that we identify as the project goals that are well beyond the scope that was originally part of WP's original contract. As we've gone through this, it becomes a very iterative process, looking at different options, looking at how best to make this work, and every option we look at often has ramifications to other impacts and so forth, and requires a whole lot of reviewing previous work and what those ramifications are to that work. So, in this particular case here, what we're asking for to continue our work here is as we've done the traffic studies and understood the traffic impacts more and more, and we've decided that some of the best way to address the intersections, instead of a 2 or 4-way stop or even a traffic signal, the best option is using roundabouts. So we're gonna be putting that and studying that in the project here. And one benefit of the roundabouts, of course, provides significant safety for these intersections, but also has a tendency to slow down traffic on the approaches. So that changes the whole noise analysis process. So now we gotta kind of go back and review the assumptions that we had made with the noise analysis. So we're continuing to do our noise impact analysis and going through that. Even though we have gone back out of the federal process, we still have to complete the environmental assessment worksheet, the state level environmental document, and that has a very similar process as the federal process. It requires us to look at all the different impacts, including noise analysis. So the noise piece has been a significant portion of this study, and we've got to do a whole lot more than we anticipated with that analysis. There's been a lot of changes with the federal document now, and when we were working towards the federal project, the federal CADEX environmental document had a lot of requirements, and so the EAW, the state document, had to match that quite a bit. Now the federal is removed. We can do different things with the state process, or we have to do different things with the state process. So we've had to come back and reevaluate the things in the state environmental document. And then a big piece that we're getting from some of our regulatory agencies, as part of any environmental assessment, we do have to do some sort of preliminary engineering. And some of the feedback we're getting from our regulatory agencies is that we need to do a whole lot more preliminary engineering than we planned on, especially on the flood impacts. So we have to go almost with a full-blown, almost a full final design of bridges to include. This is something that's not normally done until a final design, but we've got to get out the soil borings and to be able to do a full-blown foundation plan for the bridge, and a significant hydraulic analysis and so forth. That's normally part of the final design, but these agencies are requiring us to do a lot more detail in the preliminary engineering, which is all included in the environmental assessment report. So a whole lot more than we anticipated, but it's all necessary to finish this EAW. So unfortunately, yes, it's another 209,000 change here. So we're asking to amend the contract here to be able to finish this report and bring a final recommendation to your board here, hopefully within the next couple months here.
Any questions from the board? None, board's wishes?
Sure, just a quick question. Can we get a tally at some point exactly? Maybe you guys have talked about this in committee as well. I mean, what is the total cost on the engineering of this project? And it seems like it creeps, we're doing this and now we're doing that, and it's just, and I get there's reasons why on all of it, but it just keeps, to my original comment, it seems like every time we turn around, it's an extra $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Now we're looking for another 209,000. Would it, I guess we can talk about, would it change the cost, or does it matter where it's at? We're still doing the same studies, right?
We're completing the final state environmental assessment worksheet, and that's going through now. We've gone through the whole process and have determined the preferred alignment at this point. We've gone through, we determined the purpose and need of the project. We got that solidified and approved by both state and federal. And we determined what criteria we were going to use to evaluate the different alternatives that we looked at, again, approved by both the state and feds. And then we used those criteria then to evaluate the several options that we were looking at, and ultimately that's, what we refer to as 29th Avenue, I think it's option 3, that, both the state and feds have has signed off on our process and how we determine option 3. So now the next steps here has been, what are all the significant impacts, or all the impacts, and how do we avoid, minimize, mitigate those impacts? Everything from farmland, hydraulics, the floodland impacts, the noise, archaeology, I'm missing this, animals and plants, and look at wetlands. There's a huge amount of effort that goes into this, and this is about a 5-mile long project that's estimated at $25 million. So the amount of engineering here, this is just the preliminary engineering. Final design, we're starting to get some ballpark figures. It's probably going to be $1.5 million, $2 million just to do the design, do the final design on this. Some of that work is being done as part of the preliminary engineering here, as required by our regulatory agencies, but it's a significant project that we've been fighting for over 30 years here, and costs not getting any cheaper here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, one of the additional times you came back for funding was because it was going to feds. That's a whole different set of paperwork and different things that they had to go back and redo because their requirements were different from the state. Am I kind of right on that?
The biggest piece was, at one point, the feds were, when we started this process, the feds gave us direction to do an environmental document called the Categorical Exclusion Programmatic document. They came back and said, no, we need to do a whole lot more, so then we kind of had to start all over again, and then now we were working on a non-programmatic categorical exclusion document, just a higher level of effort and putting into this thing here, but and all alongside what we're working on is that EAW over the state, and that has to kind of marry or match the federal process. But now that we're separated from the federal process, we can it's a few things that we got to change to meet state requirements and so forth. But now we're under the state process totally now. So.
Board's wishes.
This is basically the next step to move forward.
Correct.
Chair, if we approve this and there's a change made in the future, it would just cost more than that?
Yeah, everything that the consultant does is at a cost. They bill hourly, and we are changing the scope of their work. It's gonna cost additional money.
Or if there's something they find that
Yep.
changes the scope.
Yep. We find something, so far archaeology's been great, but if we find a native burial ground, we might have to do something completely different, and that would be additional effort on the engineer's perspective here. So
It was said earlier during public comment that possibly 4 roundabouts, is that?
we are looking at right now, proposing, I believe it is 4 roundabouts, would be at 26th Street and Kenyon Road, the intersection of the East Side Corridor and 26th Street. I believe it's Rose in the intersection of the East Side Corridor, and then
School?
the school. I can't remember offhand, but I think it was 4. So.
Not like you said, that would slow traffic.
The roundabouts do have that effect of slowing traffic in their approaches, so that affects the noise analysis significantly. So,
Mr. Chair, I feel like we were told before too that to construct a roundabout versus putting stoplights, it's cheaper for a roundabout?
typically, it's cheaper. Yes. Just the signals alone, with the current MnDOT standards for signals, is jumped up significantly in price, just the signals alone are now $1 million per intersection on average. And that doesn't count all the turn lanes that have to be built, there's significantly more pavement in the signalized intersection than even roundabouts, so, in most cases, roundabouts are cheaper than the signal.
And safer.
And safer. Benefits of roundabouts are incredible. They move traffic much more efficiently, they're safer in many cases, especially on a new project like this, they're most likely cheaper with the cheap land of, relatively cheap land of farmland or developing area here. If we were in the middle of a urbanized area, those acquisition land prices can be a lot more and could potentially be more expensive than for the roundabout. But when we can get all three of those things in our favor, safer, cheaper, and more efficient traffic operations, you don't see that in engineering. Usually you get the pros and cons. Something costs more to get it safer, or to have all three of those in our favor. But that's why we so much appreciate roundabouts. So.
Plus, ultimately, it should slow traffic down. I think that's one of the concerns of that neighborhood, is to slow the traffic down.
As part of WSB's final recommendations as we conclude the EAW process here, is we'll be including in that recommendation those roundabouts to provide that traffic control, as well as all the other things that were going into this.
Yep. Thank you, Paul.
Can we ask questions?
Resolutions?
If I may, Commissioner, next steps of this is we are planning a neighborhood and public meeting to discuss particularly the noise analysis piece here and the impacts on different neighborhoods throughout this project. So there will be an option for the public to comment and provide feedback to the results of what we are finding regarding the noise impacts. So that'll be an opportunity for the public to be engaged with the engineering team and provide that two-way communication between the neighborhoods, the residents, and the engineering team. You're certainly welcome to be at that meeting. We are working on doing that within, I don't know, I keep saying the next month or two, but it keeps getting pushed off a little bit more and more as the regulatory agencies are asking more and more questions. But that is the next major step in this. And then once we get all that public feedback just on the noise analysis piece, then we can wrap up. We're nearly done with all the other significant impact analysis, and then hopefully within a month or two after that meeting, then there'll be another public meeting to be able to evaluate the entire scope of what WSB has put together here, and the entire recommendation that WSB is going to be bringing to the plate here. And the entire environmental assessment worksheet will be available for the public to view. There's going to be a 30-day public comment period, and sometime during that period, we'll have another public meeting, again, for that two-way communication between the public and the engineering team and ourselves here. So we'll have at least two opportunities more for the public to get involved in this project here.
And at that point, will WSB show some options?
We'll be, well, for the noise analysis, we'll be looking at, we're still trying to figure out how exactly what we can and can't do for that process, working with our regulatory agencies to understand what we can or can't do on that, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking out loud here. Are we doing this, the cart before the horse, or out of order, or however you want to term it? Should we maybe be having the public meeting first and then approve this expenditure and going down that road? Or, I know you said it's kind of an all or nothing on this number 26.
We're now 26, this is 27.
27, I mean, I'm sorry.
Both, well, we know under the federal process, but both the state and feds were very adamant that there is no county board decision on this until we've gone through the process of going through the entire environmental assessment, or in the case of the feds, if we were still in the feds, we have to go through the entire analysis, the entire process, and get the a objective analysis and looking at all the different facts and so forth, and then bringing that only after going through that process, going through that detailed analysis, and then coming up with a recommendation, presenting that to a public meeting to get that public input, and then the engineers will have to provide some sort of comments to respond to the public comments. And if there's public comments that can be addressed, it might change things, and there's been, every project I've had that has had public comment, we look back at what we've done, and if we can change something to address an issue or something that we didn't think about, or it's part of the process. And until that process is fully vetted and gone through, that we have a final environmental report to present to you, both the states and feds do not want a non-engineering, study process, trying to take the emotion out of it and make it a very facts-based study and process. So it's an involved process, but that's the way the state and the feds require.
And I think, Mr. Chair, I think this is something we've talked about all along, Ms. Bryden, that this is a process, but it's a long process. And this to me is just another step in getting that environmental document to the finish line, so then we can move into that next phase. So I think it's a necessary part of the project.
Oh, this part of the project deal with the railroad mitigation or something?
There is a part of the EAW is to address the railroad crossings that we have to do. And we have started discussions with the railroad. They seem to be on board with the new location that we'll have to cross the road with the new railroad crossing for a new roadway. That certainly brings a lot of, I'll call it angst on the railroad, because they don't want railroad crossings at all. But we have proposed just 1,600 feet away is the current alignment that we're looking at is Havana Road, County Road 171, that is just a short distance away. And once the east side corridor is built, that crossing is not really as needed. And normally, most railroads require several crossings closed for every new crossing introduced. So far, we propose just closing this one crossing, and in exchange of opening a new crossing. And so far, the railroad seems on board with just one-for-one swap here, which is really unheard of. So we have identified several other crossings that are potential crossings that wouldn't be such a major impact on the communities they serve, but it's that's not something I want to bring up with the railroad at this point. Right now, we got a one-for-one swap, but as this previous rail agreement is gone, that's at whim. We're trying to cross their property, and they really have the ultimate say on how we're gonna do that. So they could come back and demand we cross it with a overpass. But every engineering guidance that we have is the traffic counts, the train counts don't even come close to justifying an overpass. So I think we are well into getting a new crossing here, and so far the road seems amenable for that one-to-one swap. So we are starting that process. We just want to have a preliminary engineering agreement signed, which will allow them to start doing their engineering and stuff that they need to analyze to get in this agreement, so cover their cost of producing a new crossing, so.
Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, to move this process and get the environmental documents finally completed, I will move we approve the amendment with WSB for preliminary engineering services for the East Side Corridor project and authorize the county engineer to sign the amendment.
The motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded, approve amendment WSB for preliminary engineering services for the East Side Corridor project and authorize county engineer to sign the amendment. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so just so we're clear, this has to be done before we can have a public hearing.
Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 28, work contract, 2025, facade